Steeple of Below Zero! What's up, Natasha? Today I decided to make this little video about Steeple of Below Zero, which is one of the bonus steeples that was recently added to the EToH Christmas event, or EToH Winter event, whatever it's called. This is gonna be a unscripted video, so I apologize if there are any like weird cuts in the audio, or I take any pauses, or I just say anything in a weird way, because I kind of struggle to properly structure things in an impromptu way. That's what I would say so far. But I decided to make this video because something I noticed is that while I'm not really surprised by this per se, I noticed that while this is a steeple that I myself actually quite enjoyed playing, I noticed that the rest of the community has quite mixed feelings on this steeple. Like, I've seen some other people who also like the steeple like I do, but a majority of the opinions that I've heard of this steeple were like pretty negative. Which once again, I'm not surprised, and I'm not by any means I'm not like mad at anybody or really disappointed. Of course, people are allowed to have their own opinions about whether they like certain things or not. But I just thought it was like a bit interesting and maybe like a bit sad the way people talked about it. I don't know if sad is the right word, but that's more or less why I'm making this video, just to go over like why I think I enjoyed this steeple so much, and why I think I can understand why others didn't enjoy it so much. But just to like understand both sides of the story and help others to understand why people like and don't like this steeple. So I think first thing is I'll start off by saying that, well, I guess I'll just mention like I'll mention like what people didn't like about this steeple and like what I like about it. It'll be sort of like a back and forth thing, stuff like that. The first thing I'll mention is that I might be a bit biased toward this steeple because first of all, I'm quite a big fan of it because of one of the mechanics, which is similar to wave dashing in Celeste, which is a game I really enjoyed myself. So as you might have noticed, near the beginning, there is this mechanic where you would go on this like double jump booster thingy, and then it would boost you onto an ice block, which you would then hold spacebar to jump off of as well. Although sometimes you have to delay holding, you're not supposed to hold spacebar, instead you're just supposed to press it, but press it later so that you slide across it a bit. But it's really like wave dashing in Celeste, and I really enjoy it. So yeah. Now I will say something. Once again, like I mentioned before, I do understand why people don't like the steeple. One of the reasons I've commonly noticed is that people complain about the punishment of the steeple. Now, if you see that ominous, like, freezing lake at the bottom, that's an insta-kill. If you fall there, you have to start the whole steeple all over again. Now, it might seem problematic because obviously people don't like having to do things all over again, and I completely understand that. I just think I feel a bit differently about it because I, for one, think it adds a bit more than that. It adds to me, it adds actual stakes to the steeple, because if you just have a tower that's like completely Sataneted all over, sure, it might be fun to play, but it won't feel that rewarding to beat. By the way, I just wanted to quickly mention that notice how this ice wall appears? I don't like that, and I think that is one of the only gripes I have with this tower, is that I don't think that should be there, because the only thing it does is it just pushes you off if you don't know that it's there, which is kind of unfair considering how, I know it's a timed button, but there is an ice platform that's activated by that timed button already, so it's like, what's the point of that wall being there other than to just shove you off unfairly? Anyways, on the other hand, if you have a tower that is a bit more punishing, you have a tower that has more tense gameplay, which on the surface might not sound great, but there are people like me who do enjoy the thrill of being in a section where making one simple mistake could end your whole run. Of course, it's important to balance punishment so that it's not like that the whole time, or at the very least so that people know what they're getting into. But in the end, it leads to beating the tower feeling much more rewarding, even if it comes at the cost of the tower feeling more stressful. I am someone who loves a good challenge. Which is why this is actually a rebeat of the Steeple. I actually beat this before, but I decided to beat it again to like first to get some footage, but also just because I enjoyed it a lot. I think that the gameplay was like, I thought it was pretty nicely balanced, and like things were indicated well, and like pretty sight readable. I'll get more into that soon. In fact, I'll probably get into it right now. I just wanted to finish up by saying that, like, yeah, it's fine that we have these differences in like in how we think about punishment. This Steeple's not for everybody, and I think that's really what I'm trying to, at the end of the day, is what I'm trying to say here. This is not a Steeple that's meant for everybody, which might be a bit controversial considering that this is in like this is for like a Christmas event, which I mean is meant to be accessible for everybody. But another thing to consider is that this is a bonus Steeple. This isn't a part of like the main like event. This was added as like if you're wanting like an extra challenge. At least that's the way I see it. I don't know what the developers were intending. But anyways, I'll get into the actual nitty-gritty of like the gameplay. I really enjoyed the gameplay. I think it has some nice creative mechanics to it, and that are like introduced well. Another complaint I noticed is that a lot of people were saying that they don't like how this is like a alerty Steeple over like punishing gameplay. So it's like a mix of probably unfamiliar mechanics and like over like a pretty punishing section. But my rebuttal to that is my counter argument to that is that I don't think there is a single mechanic in this tower that is introduced over like a punishing section. You might have noticed that basically all of the mechanics were introduced on floor 1, and the thing that's good about that is floor 1 is basically a safety net, and even if it wasn't, it's like floor 1. It's like the beginning of the tower. There's not that much punishment there, so I think that's a very good place to introduce the mechanics of the tower. And then whenever there's new mechanics, like for example, this is floor 3, and at the beginning there was like a new mechanic introduced where there were these like unstable platforms. That was introduced over a safety net. That was not introduced over a section where you're above the freezing lake, like this section right now. That was like it's introduced safely so that people are allowed to like experiment with it and like get a hang of it before they're tested on their actual abilities. So I think that people might not be understanding that very well. They just see that there's a whole bunch of insta-kills and that there's unfamiliar mechanics, and they're like, oh no, this is the worst Steeple ever made. This is the worst event Steeple. Now, something I will admit is that in the portal room, at first I just climbed up the icicle that's in like the top right corner. In fact, if you looked closely, you might have noticed that I went for that at first, but then I remembered that there is actually a dash orb, and I guess that's what I'm calling those double jump thingies now. I'm calling them dash orbs now. But I noticed that there's a dash orb in that room, so I decided to use it. But I'm thinking it's not really a great idea to have one in the portal room, because technically they're supposed to be introduced at like the beginning of the tower, but the portal room is like before the tower actually begins. So I imagine people who aren't aware of the dash orb are like a bit confused on like how it works and how it interacts with the ice too. So it's like, if you understand what I mean. Now, Something that's pretty fitting for this floor is that some other people have been a bit confused with how this mechanic on this floor works. How it works is that if whenever you move, you take damage. It's as simple as that. It's not it's just that the way people think it works is that they think that you're just constantly taking damage no matter what, so you have to go quickly. Which I guess it might not even be that way. That's just from what I've seen, people have been like a bit confused on whether which works that way or not. But the way it works is that if you don't move, you're good. You won't take any damage. But you do. I think it's actually a pretty cool mechanic, because for this one you actually have to like take some time to like really think about it and strategize like how to do the jumps, you know. And I think that's something I really like about this steeple, and it's something that that is present throughout the whole thing. It's like you have to think about and strategize like a lot of the jumps. You don't just do them like you don't just autopilot and do them like a lot of like some other towers might be. You have to take a look at the route and like think about how to properly do it, you know. And I think this steeple does this sight readability pretty well. It warns people of like things that they might not be able to see. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints with that, except maybe with the vine warning at the end of floor 3. That could just be because I failed it once, and it was a pretty stupid fail, admittedly. I will say once again, I might be a bit biased with this because I am someone who I'm someone who's like more of a soul crushing player. I have been quite a few soul crushing myself, so I'd say my skill level is pretty. I was pretty overqualified for this steeple, which is remorseless difficulty, because I find that I'm pretty capable of like sight reading remorseless towers, and to an extent sight reading like insane towers as well. I've sight read like the revamps of Theon's Tower. I've sight read Tower of Polychromatic Zero, so I know like the tricks and stuff. So I'd say this is like in terms of sight readability, I'd say that most people struggle with sight reading more than I do. And I'm not saying that to like flex or anything. I'm just saying that that's kind of how things are, and just to like to get a better understanding as to why people might not be so fond of the sight readability of the steeple. Another part where I may be biased in judging this steeple is that this steeple has received some nerfs, and the version of the steeple I beat is like the nerfed version, and the reason why that's significant is because apparently like pre-nerf, like in the unnerfed version, floor 5 used to be a lot harder. You would take more damage as you would move. The wood would heal you less, and I guess maybe the gameplay was a bit harder. So yeah, overall much harder than the final. Well, not the final, since it was that hard when it came out, but definitely harder than the nerfed version, which I guess could have an impact on I guess it could also explain why people had such a difficult time with this steeple, while I had a pretty good time with it. But I don't think it would make the whole argument, you know? Also, can we just take some time to appreciate how like good the atmosphere of this steeple is? Like, first of all, it's very well decorated. I love the use of like the universal studs on like bits of the snow, and like the icy parts, and like the wood structures and stuff like that. It looks really nice. It looks really nice. They did a good job with the decorations, and also with the effects with the wind and like the fogginess, and the way the frozen lake looks. Like it all looks really nice, and it all comes really together. And also I just love how like I love the music selection as well. I think the music selection is really good as well. My favorites are are the songs on floor 3 and floor 5, just because those are the ones that just stick out to me the most. And I'd say like the music and like the atmosphere and like the environment, they work really well with like the what the stakes are in that current situation. Like for example, for like the first couple of floors, the music is kind of like, oh, it's just like the beginning. It's like the beginning. It's a bit mysterious. And then as you get into like the middle of the steeple, it's like it starts to get more serious and starts to get a bit more like tense, you know. And then once you get to floor 5, it's like, oh god, it's like you're this far, and like you're just barely hanging in there, you know, like you're hanging on to dear life. And I feel like the music really fits the vibe of that throughout like the whole steeple. And then especially with floor 6 is like it's finally over. You've made it to the end basically. I like to think this is more like a 5-floor steeple than a 6-floor steeple, because the 6th floor is basically free. You basically can't die there unless you try to, because it's a celebration, you know, like you made it. And honestly, I would say this is actually one of my favorite parts of the event, because I was getting kind of tired of all like the story building steeples and towers. I feel like they didn't really have that much like substance to the story. I feel like they were kind of just they were kind of just there. Once again, it's just how I feel. If other people enjoy it, that's great. And I'm glad if you enjoy it. It's just me. I was just more about the gameplay. Hey, I mean, don't get me wrong. If it's a good story, I enjoy a good story myself, especially one that like strikes a personal chord to me. But I just didn't feel like that way with the steeples and towers that were in this event. And I just kind of just joked about it. But so it was nice and refreshing to like see the bonus steeples just kind of get straight to the point, you know. It's like it's kind of more interpretive, I guess. Although something that did make me sad was that people were saying that some people were saying that they wanted the steeple gone. Once again, they were allowed to think that, but I think something to consider is that these steeples are made by real people who put their own time and effort into them, and like put in what they thought was good for the steeple. So I imagine if they hear that people want their steeples gone, I imagine they wouldn't feel too happy about that. So that's really the only time where I would say maybe adjust the wording a little bit, so that it's like you respect the effort and time put into these steeples, while also still maintaining like the idea that you don't really like it. Because I think wording is super important in these types of situations, you know? Something I will say about this final floor is that someone in one of the comments mentioned a very interesting point. I don't remember it exactly, but someone said that the reason why floor 6 is like the warm floor is because when someone is experiencing like really cold temperatures and they're about to die, they start to feel like a lot of warmth, because it's their bodies their body's making a last ditch effort to warm them up. So it's like the last moments before their death. So that's something I thought that was interesting. I don't know if it was intended, and I'm not sure if I worded it properly, so I might. But it is something that I thought was neat, you know? I think the last thing I'll say is that I find that I am someone who enjoys more of the towers and steeples and citadels in this game than a lot of other people, because I feel like I am someone who just enjoys things for how they are, I guess. I don't know. No, I don't think that's how I would word it. I would word it as like, I understand that this game had its like, oh yeah, sorry, you get to watch me fail that jump. But I've been playing this game for a while, so I've seen like the many phases it's gone through, back when it was originally just meant to be like a rage game, meant to be like actually difficult, meant to be something like new and difficult for like obbies, because back then, like before that, I played Flescape too. So, and that was to me like the start of like starting to witness obbies that were like really difficult actually. So, and I feel like EToH really continued that whole trend. So, that's why I was so on board with it at first. And then over time, I noticed that it was starting to focus more on being fun over being like challenging, which once again, I think the two can come together, but people usually associate things that are difficult as like being more for people who enjoy challenge, less for people who just want to have a good time, you know. So it's I don't think there's anything wrong with this new approach. I of course I myself have enjoyed some of the more like lax towers of the newer era, and I will definitely say there is still definitely a place for harder, more challenging towers in the game. It's just something I've noticed, you know, like it's the easier towers are like getting are more like story focused, and more focused on the experience as opposed to the actual like difficulty and like gameplay side of things. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with I don't see much wrong with how things are going right now. I think things are going well, and that's pretty much all I have to say about the Steeple. I like the Steeple. A lot of people don't, and I think that's alright. So, as I end this video, I just want to say, I hope you all having a great, happy, Merry Christmas, and I'll see you whenever I upload the next one. Toodles!